everybody, and welcome to the 7th episode of Burnout. It's come to my attention that these episodes just aren't entertaining enough anymore. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to increase the banking on these episodes. That way, it's going to be way more entertaining. Don't you like it? I mean, it's a lot more exciting. Welcome everybody to the 7th episode of Burnout. That's right, we are on the 7th episode. Now, that is pretty nice. And this week it is all about Atlanta, which is pretty much the prime example of artificial entertainment on a racetrack. Even though I do kind of like the new Atlanta Speedway, I mean, it is a fantastically fast track, it's a lot more exciting, but at the same time, it is something that kind of feels pretty artificial. I mean, the old Atlanta was a pretty good strategic race, but of course we can't have that anymore in the world of NASCAR. Like I said, it has to be either short tracks or super speedways. So yeah, NASCAR decided last season to increase the banking in Atlanta, technically making it a super speedway. And overall, yeah, the first two races were absolute wreckfests. And this week it looked like it was going to be the exact same thing, as the truck race and the Xfinity race were absolute wreckfests. But this time in the Cup race, it really wasn't too bad this time around. Mainly because I think it's just better off to have that strategic racing. But yeah, the Cup drivers actually did a pretty good job keeping the race relatively clean. I think there was only 2 big wrecks throughout the entire race. So, good job, guys. You did a great job putting on a pretty good show. Even though the track has sort of been reconfigured, so you guys are meant to wreck there. So, good job on you guys, I guess. Alright, let's go ahead and get things started off with the winner. Joey Logano, the defending NASCAR champion, wins his first race this season and the first non-Chevrolet victory of the year. And I think he did it in a fantastic manner too. He managed to play his patience out fantastic and struck at the greatest time and managed to pull off for the victory. And every single week I have to think to myself, did this driver deserve this victory? Was he consistent throughout the race, and did he pull off his pass at a fantastic time like what Logano did, or was it a fluke? Which overall, this week, it was definitely deserved. As much as I'm not a fan of Logano winning races, he definitely deserved this win for how good he played his cards, and for the fact that he was pretty dominant in the first 2 stages of the race. It was a great weekend for Penske altogether. We had to see Logano win the race and the first stage, Austin Cindric winning the second stage, Ryan Blaney being a fantastic driver throughout the race as well. So yeah, they were all up in the top 5 in the closing laps. I kind of felt like that Penske was going to pull a Junior Motorsports at Daytona earlier this year and just completely fumble the bag and all wreck out. But no, they actually managed to pull through and managed to put on a great show. They even had their old Penske driver in the mix as well, Brad Keselowski. Which overall, Brad, I really thought was going to win that race. But no, of course he didn't. He managed to hold off with some great blocks in the late portions of the race. With a little help from his spotter as well, he managed to hold off the field as much as he could until that last lap when it just couldn't work anymore. So yeah, I think Brad's win is absolutely going to be coming this season, even though it might be a while. But overall, yes, I do think Brad really showed that he still has capability of winning races in the Cup Series. We could be seeing it in the coming races, potentially like a big track like Talladega or something. Could be where we might be seeing his first win as an owner driver. So yeah, give it some time, and Brad's definitely going to be back in victory lane once again. Yep, moving on, of course, I mentioned how the race was relatively clean. We only got to see some big wrecks in the 3rd stage. All we got to see was a pileup with Harvick and a semi-big pileup with Larson in the 3rd stage, which overall was pretty good, considering that this track was specifically made to create wreckfests, I guess. But hey, at least we get to see slow racing and a lot of drivers wrecking out and losing money because they have to destroy all their race cars. Isn't that great? Because like I said before, a lot of this stuff that NASCAR is doing, it's just to pander to people that only have 3 seconds of an attention span. They just go,
leaders full throttle now. Look at that.
Well, I'm bored. To you guys, watch it. It takes time. I know. Have patience. Don't immediately change the channel because they aren't wrecking every 5 seconds. Watch the race. Man. But hey, on the bright side for this race, it did not end in an overtime finish like it has been for the past several weeks. So at least the win actually felt kind of justified, didn't really feel too artificial. So, glad on that. We finally got to see an actual finish for once. So, that's pretty cool. And then, of course, the last big thing to come out of the Cup race this weekend was Ross getting into some hot water yet again twice this weekend. The first one, a lot of people thought that Ross caused the wreck with Harvick, even though it looked like he didn't touch him. And then the second one was Ross getting into a confrontation with Alex Bowman after the race because he forced him out of the lane and he ended up falling back significantly after the race on the closing laps. Ross, I love you, man. You're my favorite driver, but please, this is all going to bite you back later in the season eventually. You're just creating more rivalries. So yeah, that was pretty much everything from the Cup race. And then you had Denny Hamlin accidentally walking into Keselowski in the bathroom. But the thing I'm more concerned about is, Fox, why did you have cameras super focused on the toilets for like a minute and a half? That's really creepy. Like, I love how everyone's laughing about, haha, Denny walked into Brad in the toilet. Why were the cameras on the toilets? We should not know about this as the public. That's just creepy. Alright, but yeah, for the Xfinity race, of course, we got to see Austin Hill winning his third race of the season. He is probably the biggest contender for the championship at the moment. Kind of wish that would have been Junior Motorsports, but they've been too busy fighting each other for the past couple races, so... Like I mentioned in the Las Vegas race, Austin Hill is a fantastic prodigy for RCR and probably their biggest future star, whether it be replacing Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch, or starting up third car again. So overall, yes, I do feel like Austin Hill is going to eventually be a Cup driver, and he will be a fantastic driver in the Cup Series. And of course, probably the other biggest thing, probably the biggest thing that happened this weekend altogether was what Josh Williams did this weekend at Atlanta. Getting parked by NASCAR because of a piece of tape flying off the car because of how stupid the damage clock is. So basically, a piece of tape came off because they were rushed to get the car fixed. NASCAR called that extending the caution and parked Josh Williams for it. And then Josh Williams, in the most insane thing I have seen all year so far, parks his car directly on the start-finish line on the track and just gets out of his car and walks out. If you ask me, that is honestly the most metal thing I have seen all year so far. And if you ask me, I honestly feel like, despite the fact he did absolutely nothing wrong because he got punished for NASCAR's terrible rule system, NASCAR's probably going to throw the book at him, give him so many penalties and so many fines. This might have been the 92 team's final race because they're probably never going to recover after this. So I gained a lot of respect for Josh Williams for that because that was just the most metal thing I've seen all year. And I really hope a lot more people support him because he's sort of an underfunded driver running for an underfunded team that really needs some support. So let's go out and support him, guys. Just don't do what you did last time. And then lastly, of course, the truck race. Christian X going on to win the race. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Or I said rice. Yeah, I think I heard that the race had the record amount of cautions in the truck series. It really comes to show how this track was just designed to create wreckfest. But at least the finish was pretty good. Other than that, I don't really remember much from the race. So, yep, that was pretty much the weekend of Atlanta in review. Overall, it's a track that is exciting and entertaining, but it does feel artificial. I kind of 50-50 on this. I do like the great new pack racing, and I do like how fun the races can be, but I also don't like the wreckfest there, and I kind of miss the old strategy Atlanta. So, that's pretty much it for Atlanta this weekend, I guess. So, yeah, not really much to talk about. So, before I move on to some other news, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, and also, I still need that liver on my desk by tonight. Okay? Okay. Alright, let's move on to the other news. Other news is alright. So first things first is something I like to call Penalty Palooza. As you got to see a bunch of penalties come out after the Phoenix race. First things first, of course, like I mentioned before, Hendrick got their louvers confiscated last weekend at Phoenix. And in response, they received an L2 penalty for Bowman, Larson, Byron, and apparently Haley, all getting docked 100 points and 10 playoff points, putting a bunch of them, pretty much everybody except Byron, out of the playoffs at this point. And it's honestly kind of wild to believe that Cody Ware now has more points than Kyle Larson in the current points battle, which if you ask me is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how Justin Haley got into this. I guess they had a Hendrick car they were using, so sucks for him, I guess. But Hendrick's got a lot more pressure on them heading into the season as well, especially how good they were in Las Vegas and Phoenix. But now they got a lot more pressure, and they're probably going to be racing a lot more aggressively to get their other drivers in the playoffs. So that's the world we live in, I guess. And then, of course, the second one was Denny Hamlin getting penalized as well for his run-in with Ross at Phoenix on the final lap, putting Ross in the wall. Apparently, he admitted that he did that on purpose because he was losing a bunch of spots. So if you ask me, that's very petty and very immature. I do feel like his penalty was kind of overkill, if you ask me, because it felt like a dude really moment. But, I mean, whatever. But the thing that really got me going was how Denny was getting criticized online for it, and he was basically calling his criticism cancel culture. Like, really, dude? You're sounding like a 50-year-old saying that. I mean, it's not as cringy as Mike Joy saying keyboard warriors.
Let's race tracker up at the top, and I'd like to hear what the keyboard warriors think.
But overall, like, dude, getting criticism for intentionally wrecking someone isn't cancel culture. I don't know what you're talking about. You didn't lose sponsorships. You aren't losing merchandise sales. Like, dude, that's not cancel culture. You're just getting criticized for doing something stupid. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Penalty Palooza this weekend. Other thing was, shortly after I finished editing the Burnout video, Nashville Fairgrounds got some pretty big news. As you guys saw, my last big video was talking about the Karens anti-Nashville propaganda. They ended up losing that and losing the board 3-2, as Nashville Fairgrounds does have permission to start its revival progress. But NASCAR is still working with these Karens to sort of compromise with them as well, which also includes adding a potential muffler package. Apparently, they have been using it for the Clash, and they will be using it in the Chicago Street Course race. And overall, there's been a lot of mixed results, but if you ask me, I definitely enjoy this idea of creating a muffler package, because it gives NASCAR the ability to race in different venues that they couldn't have done before. For example, one of the biggest ideas I come up with is Laguna Seca, for example. They can only race certain races on certain days because of the noise complaints. I think having a muffler package could definitely increase NASCAR chances of racing in new venues and also different cities. Like I mentioned, they could use it to race in street course races, for example. I know a lot of people are against this, but let me ask you this. What would you rather have? Cars that are slightly quieter, or your favorite short track getting torn down and turning to housing? Yeah, let me leave you on that thought. And then lastly, I don't have them on my script, but honestly, pretty cool to see Kevin Harvick announcing that he's going to be racing a number 29 car in the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, throwing back to his first ever win in 2001. Which, if you ask me, is honestly really cool to see. Sort of a little bit of Harvick history right there. And really makes me want to question if North Wilkesboro will end up being the throwback weekend instead of Darlington. Because I really love the Darlington throwback weekend. It sort of gives me so many ideas of so many cool paint scheme concepts. But if you ask me, I feel like North Wilkesboro could be a pretty good spot to move the throwback weekend to there. If it's either as sort of an all-star race thing or potentially as a points race in the future. Which is something I might talk about on a later date. So, yep, overall, fantastic decision by Harvick and Swordhouse Racing to see the number 29 car back on track. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, as far as I'm aware, that's all of my news coming out of this weekend. And before we go, we gotta do my predictions. This weekend, it's going to be the Circuit of the Americas, our first road course race of the season. And here are my predictions for that. For the Truck Series, we're going to be predicting Zane Smith as the winner of that. I believe he won the first race at COTA, and he's going to go on to win the third truck race at COTA. And we'll also get his second win of the season. Moving on, we got to the Xfinity race. I'm predicting that one's going to be going to AJ Allmendinger, which is pretty much a freebie for road courses. If we're playing a bingo game at the road course racing on who's going to be the winner, I feel like AJ Allmendinger is going to be the free space, pretty much. So, yep, Allmendinger going on to win his first race of the season. And lastly, we're going to talk about the Cup winner, which, if you ask me, is probably my absolute boldest prediction of the year so far. Probably is going to happen, but if you ask me, it could also easily happen because it's just so random, but I feel like it could still easily happen. Kimi Räikkönen. Yes, that's right. Project 91 will score their first ever win. And Kimi Räikkönen, F1 champion, will score his first career NASCAR victory. I mean, he was doing really good at the Watkins Glen race in his first ever start. And if you ask me, he's going to finally pull off and score his first win at Circuit of the Americas. And the third driver for Trackhouse Racing that will score their first ever win at a road course. So, I don't know how that's going to do with playoff implications, but if you ask me, that would still be really cool to see Räikkönen go on to win at COTA. So, yeah, I know it's crazy. It probably is going to happen, but if you ask me, it still could easily happen as well. So that's it. That's my predictions. And also, that is it for episode 7 of Atlanta. Yes, this is a laundry ball. So tune in next week for our review of the COTA race and also all the news that is still yet to come out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye. Here is the stool I used, and you're just going to zoom in right into it. It looks so cool. It looks like it going into a chamber. Oh, I can't go any farther.